I wonder, how has the UK changed throughout the course of your life? This is relevant to me, especially because I've lived in the UK and I moved to the UK because I love the UK. I'm very, very fond of your cultural heritage, of the traditions, of everything that that the UK comprises. But living there, I could see that not everyone would agree with me on that. So, yeah, I wonder how you feel that things have changed.
When I was younger, when I was a young man, people were proud of their country. People were proud of Britain, proud of what Britain's achieved, the things that had been done, the Industrial Revolution, the defeat of Nazism, and so on. Now they're ashamed of it. Many British people are actually ashamed of their country. They're ashamed of their traditions and ashamed of their history. And I find it disturbing.
Yes. I mean, what in particular do you see them be ashamed of? Do they have a logical vision, or is it just a general malaise?
It seems to vary. The shame over slavery has now mutated into a general shame for the British Empire, which is peculiar. But now there is a shame about the Industrial Revolution because of the supposed effect of climate change, the carbon dioxide. Mm-hmm. This has been tracked back now to the Industrial Revolution. And of course, Britain started the Industrial Revolution. So we're now responsible for climate change as well. And this is a really peculiar perspective, to find one country blamed for everything wrong in the world.
Yes, it does seem a bit of a problem that can only occur in a kind of a first tier nation. It's almost in a way kind of an affectation of royalty to be able to tear down your own tradition in such a way. You would not. I mean, as a Romanian myself, no one would do something like that here. It just doesn't. It does not compute. We did not have an empire, but there were some bad things happening here as well.
But you've had bad people in charge. I mean, you're in Transylvania. You've got Vlad Dracul. So, yes. But your people don't go around worrying about that. And,
no, people love Vlad Dracul here. He's seen as a folk hero.
Yeah, of course he is. He's resistant. He was fighting against the Turks. Of course. You're proud of him, but you don't go around saying, "Oh, it's so terrible, all the impalings, all the dreadful things that happened under him." It would be completely mad.
Yes, especially because the Turks, obviously being people of color, I can't even imagine under a modern lens, it would be very bad.
Yes, it'll be Islamophobia before you know it, if you say too much about that.
Any resistance to Turkish imperialism is Islamophobia. Yeah, I mean,
absolutely.
is guilty of that. That's also an interesting perspective, that the only colonialism that exists and the only imperialism is particularly part of the British Empire and its offshoots. And no one else has ever done anything like it in history. And I think that's one thing I love about your deep dives, is that you not only highlight them, but you also explain the extent of past colonialism. And I wonder when was the inflection point? Because this stuff used to be taught in schools, at least partially, and then now there isn't any.
No, it's not. I think perhaps the 1970s were the tipping point. There was a tendency then towards iconoclasm. There was a tendency to throw down the old certainties, to mock heroes, to make fun of the people that were held in high esteem, which is a healthy enough thing. I've no objection to that. But then it turned into something darker. It turned into a rejection of history, a rejection of values and customs.
Yes.
And then, of course, at the same time, as you say, British imperialism became the only imperialism. I don't have to tell you about Turkish Ottoman imperialism, because, of course, your country suffered from it. The Slav countries suffered from it. The Turks reached the gates of Vienna. They were trying to destroy Europe and eradicate Christianity. It was a jihad. But it's considered impolite now to mention that. It's impolite to mention the Ottomans. It's impolite to mention Turkish imperialism, which is still going strong. The Turks are still an imperialist nation now. They're still trying to expand and suppress minorities. But people won't talk about that. They'll only talk about white imperialism.
Exactly. And also of the kind of the positive externalities of imperialism, because I live in Transylvania now, which is, I mean, obviously, some people from the south of Romania might not agree with me, but I think it's still kind of an elevated region because it used to be part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. You can see this in architecture, also some local customs and administration, in just the way things are structured politically here. It seems, it's a bit less corrupt. It's always been a little bit richer since the Austro-Hungarians were here. So, I mean, the remnants of this brutal occupation are quite positive for a lot of the people who lived here. So I wonder, especially given that the at least from my perspective, the British Empire had some positive effects for some regions, especially contrasting them to areas that have not been under imperial occupation. So I wonder if is that not any empirical evidence that it's not all so dark and dire?
You would think so, yes. You would think the fact that we gave the world a language and the values of Magna Carta, you would think that the courts of India and African countries are based upon the British legal system and the burden of proof and jury trials and a whole lot of other things, together with railways. And there are an awful lot of things, but no, it doesn't seem to be taken into reckoning.
Yes, but Simon does produce carbon. So, of course.
Yes, that's right. Yes. Global warming, of course.
Any progress produces carbon, obviously. So, don't you? Yeah, it's yeah, I kid, but it's true. I mean, you could look at the first agricultural societies and blame them for everything that came in their wake. But yeah, that's a strange way of doing history.